So, in a short story, you have limited words and time to convey who a character is or show a character arc where they grow or change. And if the original idea is more plot based, it's tempting to overlook the characters beyond filling the role they need to in the story. But characters are extremely important in crafting a compelling narrative. So today I wanted to share one quick tip that has recently helped me with my short stories. This story is actually the script for the horror game that I'm working on right now, called I Am the Exhale. It features two characters, a therapist and one of her patients. In the game, all of this is going to be audio on a tape recording, but despite lacking a ton of description or action description, this is still first and foremost a short story. So, in any project that I do, story is the most important thing that I focus on before I do any work on anything else. So, when I was first started taking notes for this story, my focus was more on the horror elements and the progression of the plot. But I realized that I was overlooking the characters. They were only characterized as much as they needed to be to fill their roles in the story. So I came up with a sort of a question slash a couple questions that I asked myself that helped me decide how to make these characters more than just the roles they're filling. So what I asked myself is, what is something about who they are that could directly conflict or be antagonized by the plot, and what would make them being the ones in the story more interesting? So, the biggest breakthrough I had was with the therapist character, which is the character that the player of the game would be playing. Because the antagonist of this story is supernatural, I decided that this character would have some sort of traumatic or unexplained event in her past that causes her to become agitated when the patient begins talking about her own unexplained experiences that she's having. Something that gives the therapist character a feeling of horrible dread from this past experience that she hadn't thought about in a really long time. And it leads her to eventually become a more active participant in the situation later on. And altogether, these questions and answers added a mix of trauma and guilt that otherwise wouldn't have been there if I would have left her as a stereotypical therapist type of character. It makes it a lot more interesting. It was a lot more interesting to write her and what ends up happening. Now, for the girl seeing the therapist, it wasn't quite as much of a maybe breakthrough, but I wanted to make sure that she wasn't just, again, like a stereotypical, like, nervous, anxious person. Like, she has anxiety, but I wanted to add nuance as well as and think about how the anxiety shaped her and her life, but I also wanted to think about how that anxiety makes her particularly targeted by this force, this supernatural thing, in a way that somebody else might not be. So, when you're writing short stories, asking these questions and trying to find ways that your characters can add interest to the plot rather than just be the sort of cardboard cutout stereotypes of whatever you're writing, or how they can add more conflict to the story, will make your stories a lot more interesting and really, in the end, a lot more enjoyable to create. Adding this conflict to them can often lead to interesting character to character interactions or character to plot interactions that you otherwise would not have thought of. So, I hope this tip helped and these questions helped. Remember, what is something about who they are that could directly conflict or be antagonized by the plot, and what would make them being the ones in the story more interesting? Those are the questions you want to ask yourself when you're crafting characters for a short story. And I encourage you to take a break when you can. Take some time to work on your own project or story. If you don't know me, I'm Brooke. I'm the creator of Oven Mother, my comic, and I'm an artist and writer who focuses on storytelling in various mediums, which I'm really excited to share more about with you guys soon. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.